All right. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. In fact, I'm gonna just shut down my Outlook right now, Scott, so it doesn't bing at us as emails coming in there, right? For the listeners, right? Sometimes Scott and I have so much stuff open up on the desktop, right? That sometimes we just forget to kind of shut it all down and silence everything, you know? So
Yeah, I
in the
have
world of electronics, right?
yeah, I've got three different windows with multiple tabs open on each
Oh yeah.
one, and I'm always bouncing around. But
It's bad enough we can be monopolized by just one electronic screen display, but when you have multiple screens set up right all over, now you can have all these windows open at one time, and it's pretty easy to get overwhelmed with a lot of stuff going on at once, right? So, how you doing this morning?
yeah, good. I mean, actually, that's kind of a good point. There's so many ways we just allow technology to just dictate, how we're forced to move through life, and I'm susceptible to it. I'm looking at my phone constantly, Um, and
Yeah,
yeah, sometimes we just got to take a pause and step away from it. We talked a little bit about that last week with the kind of mindset stuff, and that is the opportunity at military retirement to rehash priorities, and that was going to be the topic of today's show, talking about priorities of getting extra certifications and stuff, and just
right.
to give a little background again, what this show is about: military retirement blueprint. I'm Scott Tucker from US Vet Wealth, here with Mike Wallace from Blue Water Advisors. And a few years ago we came together because we noticed we were talking with the same type of audience, usually senior leaders retiring out of the military after 20, 25, 30 plus
Yeah.
years. And that it's often say to us, "Hey, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up," and it's a big
That's
challenge
probably
for.
going to go down in history. That is the, and it's so funny because when members come to us, they go, "Hey, I know this is," they always start it like this. I know this is going to sound strange. I know it's not going to make sense to you, but I'm not really sure what I want to do when I grow up. That is probably the number one most common thing that we do here, right? I mean, we hear this over and over and over, right?
and, and that's
And I
okay.
always kind of chuckle because when people bring it up, they always think it's a unique, you know,
Right.
just an individual thing to them. And we go, dude, we hear this all the time, right? So,
Yeah, the assumption is there's a playbook. We've been following orders and
yeah,
SOPs and
yeah,
giving them out for so long
yeah,
that it should just be easy. I'll just fall into a similar role. And sometimes people say, you know what, I don't really want to be doing the same thing, or I don't know how to
right.
translate my skills, or honestly, the economic landscape has changed so dramatically, whether that's, getting online, working from home,
Yeah,
joining a multitude of new types of corporations, or staying in the defense industry. It's all changing rapidly. So that's understandable. And so that's the idea of this show is, we get together and talk about the hot topics that we see on a daily basis, mostly from the Blue Water perspective, as they're shepherding those senior leaders through that process of evaluating their priorities in post-military life, and then aligning it to a source of income. And what I do is help organize, financial military retirement benefits, and align retirement planning type goals for the next retirement. But I think what I've noticed in the financial industry is that everybody's always talking about retirement planning, age 65, and
right.
they've kind of left out the financial aspect of the first retirement, the military retirement, the one
Sure.
where real opportunities play out. And if you feel uncertain about your finances at that moment, then maybe you jump into something you aren't ready for, or spend time getting a degree maybe you don't need, or a certification, and still left asking questions. I think for the younger veterans, a lot of them just you use the GI Bill. Oh, I'll just go get a degree for a while, and then they got to go through the whole process
Yeah.
all over again. So, and one topic we haven't talked about, but is common, is getting things like the PMP, the Six Sigma, and
Oh, yeah.
probably a plethora of other ones I'm not even aware of. That's your wheelhouse, Mike. But yeah, I just wanted to, start broaching this topic and see, when is it needed? When should you consider it, or maybe even avoid it, yeah. How do you
Yeah.
want to start this conversation?
Well, it is. And in fact, when you brought this up, you mentioned this earlier in the week. And for those listening in, Scott and I will usually, when we wrap up this show, we usually wrap up, a few minutes online going, hey, what do you want to talk about next week? Right. And we kind of kick that around maybe today, later today, what we want to talk about next week. And but more often than not, it's a Monday afternoon or Tuesday, and we're going, hey man, what are we going to talk about? Right. And so
Yeah.
when I suggested this, and you said, hey, that's great, because we haven't talked about this before. And that really kind of hit me. I'm going, man, have we not really talked about this topic before? And I think you're right. I don't think we have we?
Yeah, because I mean, we talked about like LinkedIn, of course, and one
Yeah,
of the assumptions is, well, I got to make my headline. If I'm not COO of such and such
sure.
corporation, and we kind of think, maybe that's not the right approach for a headline. Then you put, well, I'm Colonel so and so or leader,
Yeah,
or the assumption is putting a bunch of letters after your name makes you look more valuable.
yeah,
And that might be useful on a resume if it's required for that
right.
particular job. But what I
Well,
notice, at least in
yeah,
the LinkedIn environment or the self-marketing,
yeah,
self-promotion environment, is that in many ways it can just make you look like a commodity and have you kind of blend in to the rest of the crowd. And so they're just picking from one of many just
yeah.
because they have that certification. And the idea is, no, how do you stand out? What is it you actually want to do? And maybe those tools are useful. Maybe they're not. Maybe they distract you.
Right.
So,
So it's a good call out, right? So I guess we kind of tangentially referenced, right, these certifications. And for
mhm.
those who might be listening in, if you haven't listened to our series on optimizing your LinkedIn profile page, and that is of interest to you, I would really encourage you to go back through the repository of these podcasts and review those. We did, how many weeks did we do, Scott? We did 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
We took the profile page one section at a time, and we just addressed each of the sections and how to optimize it. And there were some really good nuggets in there, I think. I really enjoyed that session. But, for this, again, a very common question we get from our members: hey Mike, I'm getting ready to step out, and I just don't think I'm competitive in the market. I think I need to go get a master's in business administration. I'm going to pursue an MBA, because if I don't get an MBA, I'm not going to get hired, right, in business. And I'm like, okay, well, or Mike, I'm going to pursue a project management role or a program management role. And so I need to get my PMP certification. And I'm like, okay, well, that's certainly an interesting discussion. And this is a little bit, this is going to sound like perhaps that here at Blue Water we're wishy-washy. And I just want to just very methodically walk through this, because we do have thoughts, we do have opinions, but more importantly, we've got analytics. I can look through our membership, and I can derive, right, what institutions, industries, companies really value, and we can make some educated assumptions, right, on
Mhm.
this. So the way I talk about it like this, Scott, is when members come to us and they have this discussion, hey, I think I need to pursue X, Y, or Z, right? And you already brought it up. Maybe it's a DIWEA certification, maybe it's a PMP or RBLP or whatever it happens to be. There are millions of different certifications out there. The way I typically answer it like this, I go, hey, listen, if this is something that you are personally passionate about and you want to pursue this because you're passionate about it, I'm all for it. right? I mean, and I'm absolutely supportive. You know, members come to us and go, man, I'm really passionate about this. I want to put in some extra reps and sets, and I want to learn this skill set in this certification area, and I want to do that. Scott, I'm never going to tell somebody that furthering your education or anything is a bad thing, right?
For sure, yeah.
But the conversation takes a little bit of a turn, and this might be where it's a little bit comes across as wishy-washy. But in that same sentence, I'll say, however, if you are pursuing this certification because you think you must have this in order to be competitive in various different industries or companies or job pursuits, right? More often than not, I'm going to tell you, you don't need it. And that goes like and again, the Blue Water membership, again, just for the audience, right? We're still about 50% post major command 06s, 25% 05s. That's math in public, right? So that's 75%. The remaining 25% is a 07 or above grouping that's growing in those 03, 04s that are hitting that 10, 12-year off ramp. And then we have about 5 to 6%, those very senior, highly educated E9s. That's the makeup of the Blue Water Network, right? So we're kind of a niche group centered around those demographics. What I tell those individuals is more often than not, you don't need these other certifications. Now, again, I just said, if you have a passion for it, and, you know, I'm supportive of building your knowledge and you know, if you're passionate about these things, yeah, absolutely pursue them. I think it's great. You want to build in the time in your career progression to go do that, go ahead and do that. But if you're pursuing it because you think you are not competitive in the space that most of our members pursue, I'm going to tell you, analytically, we don't see that data, right? I don't see that as being a requirement. So let me just stop there, because I know I kind of talked on both sides of that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Clearly?
my main question would be, you know, from a timing perspective, if you're a few years out and you want to start racking up certifications while
Yeah.
you're still on active duty or get that MBA, I think, you know, that's the real opportunity. When does it become a hindrance if we're trying to do it while we're also retiring?
That's a great question, right? And again, most members, when they approach their career progression and they come to us in here at Blue Water, most, not all, but most, are under the false assumption that the closer I get to, right, stepping in on terminal leave or stepping out, right, of active duty service, the closer I get to that, Scott, I'm going to have a lot of extra time over here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the false assumption. And in execution, what our membership tells us and what we know from our own experience, it's actually almost just the opposite. The closer you get, you're going to be consumed, right, with a lot of competing interests. I mean, think about this, and the grouping that I just described. You're consumed with planning a retirement. You're consumed with some mandatory out processing. Everybody has to go through TAP, right? You're probably going to do that once or twice. Many of our members do that. Why? I'm not really sure. The value proposition on that experience is still in question. But there are some things that they bring to light: VA medical, right? Disability, these kind of things. Individuals are going to want to step in and engage with you, Scott. Survivor benefit plan, thrift savings plan, VGLI, all these other options that they hadn't thought about. And so the point I'm trying to make is, the closer you get to stepping out, your DD 214, all these competing interests of things that have to get done, now all of a sudden they're going to go, oh my gosh, I don't have as much time as what I thought, but I'm going to try to cram some certification stuff in there too. And you run the risk of missing out on the single most important thing that you will find helpful to you in your career progression, and that is networking, right? That is the single most important thing. Meeting new people, in or who have been in the company or industry that you are interested in, and having a meaningful dialogue with them and building that networking bridge to what it is you want to pursue, right, in the future. And that's the most important thing. So to answer your question, when does it become problematic, right? I would say in that instance, right? Because now the single most important thing that I want you engaged in at that time is networking. And now you have all these other competing interests, right?
Yeah,
Some of them you can't get around, some of them you can. But for the members listening in, I would just say don't lull yourself into that false sense of security that thinks that the closer that you get, right, to your terminal leave date, the more time I'm going to have. And it really, in execution, doesn't feel like that.
How much time does getting a certification take? Like, I mean, I just have no idea of this world. I mean, I generally have an idea of, what it takes to get an MBA. Either you go to a
Yeah,
program or you're taking night school, in some
exactly.
capacity. But either way, you're spending hours, going through a
Oh, yeah.
program.
Yeah.
What is
We
the Six Sigma,
Well,
a
I'm
PMP?
gonna pull in a good friend of mine, Mr. John Malfitano, who through Syracuse University runs the O2O Onward to Opportunity program here regionally, and they support a lot of individuals in pursuit of certifications, right? Whether some individuals want to get a Microsoft certification, right? Or some kind of a software certification, or, LinkedIn, you've seen these online LinkedIn courses, certification
Right.
in communication, certification in, conflict resolution, whatever it happens to be. There are a ton of them that are out there. PMP is a big one. Not only from a time perspective, it can be weeks and in many cases months, right, to go through this curriculum to do this. But here's the other thing, Scott. Some of these certifications aren't free. Some of them can be upwards to thousands of dollars that members are going to have to invest into this. Now, there are options out there for members to consider. The first option is seek out services. For example, PMP comes to mind. If you're interested in taking a PMP course and you don't have the revenue that you want to invest into it, come to us here at Blue Water. We're happy to connect you with John Malfitano, who's a staunch supporter of us here at Blue Water, in the O2O program. And they offer through Syracuse University that availability or that opportunity to pursue a certification in PMP at no cost, right? Which is a huge savings. But barring that, if there's no throughput or availability there, we often tell our members that as you're pursuing your next success, there's going to come a time where you have now arrived at your next success. You have imparted upon that company that you are the answer to what they are looking for. And at that instance, you are now in receipt of a signed offer letter. We have members negotiate offers to include, hey, I'm interested in getting a PMP certification. Would the company be, has the company historically been able to offer that to individuals in a role or responsibility such as what I'm filling? In other words, it becomes a negotiation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of companies look at this very favorable. They're like, hey, you're willing to go and do this and bring it back to the company so we can take advantage of it? Absolutely. We're supportive of that, right? Or even negotiating, hey, does the company historically offer education benefits for individuals in roles and responsibilities such as this to pursue follow-on education, for example, a master's, right, in business administration? Absolutely, we do offer that. Or, hey, we haven't, but we would entertain it in this case. In other words, it becomes a negotiation. So I don't want members to think that it's all or nothing. I either have to pay for this or I don't get it. I have to have this, which is not necessarily true. Is there a benefit from me having this? Maybe, maybe not. Is it going to keep me from getting a job? Probably not, unless, Scott, in the position description, it specifically says members must have a project management certification, right?
Right.
It'll say in there. Now, that's different. And again, I know this kind of comes across as talking on both sides of the fence. And so I'm trying to be really clear on this.
Well, I don't think you are. I think you're saying, hey, there's plenty of opportunities out there. You don't have to
Yeah.
feel boxed in, because now, maybe once you get the certification, you're thinking I can only go for these types of roles, or I should only be pursuing them. What types of roles are more likely to require certification, um, versus
So
one
it's,
where a company would maybe bring you
yeah,
in on the team first and then say, hey, you know what? Let's send you off to do this while you're already on board.
that's a great question, right? And what I would tell you is companies that government contracting companies that are bidding work, right, to the government to receive and take action and do work for the government, right? Many instances, the government will write a list of requirements, give back to that company. So when that company goes out and advertises it, say, you must have this. Yeah,
Mhm.
and typically we're familiar with position descriptions, right? Must have this level of experience, must have this level of education, must have these kind of things. And typically a position descriptions, it's broken up into two categories. Here's your must haves, but then right below that are what? Hey, we would like you to have these things also, right? So this is kind of negotiable. That doesn't mean that you have to have 100% of the must haves. It becomes negotiable. If you do line up everything on the must haves, that's great. So perhaps a must have says, must have a project management certification. In that instance, that may be something that the company says, hey, it's a government contracting company. We want you to do this work for the company, for the government, but you have to have this certification. But it becomes a negotiation at that point, Scott. You see what I'm saying? It's like, hey, we want you to do this work, Mike. We want you to come to work for government contracting company X. At that point, maybe you have received an offer letter. Now you're negotiating with the company. Hey, I understand this is a requirement. Yeah, but the company's going to put you through, and the government has agreed to this, right? We're going to put you in the role of responsibility, but we've got 4 months, 3 months to get you certified. So I need you to, Mike, would you be willing to go through this course? The company will pay for it. Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that. Right. And that's, we've seen that with members. We've seen that, where it's a requirement, where it's stated there that you have to have these certifications, and the company's willing to help out in that. Right.
Let me ask you about MBAs a little bit, because I know a lot of people just throughout their military career, they get an MBA along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what are you noticing amongst your members that have MBAs? Are they pursuing different types of roles? I'm not talking about getting an MBA while you're retiring. I'm saying for those that already have it, are they are they searching different types of positions? Are they recruited in a different way into companies?
You know,
Is there anything else that
I
MBAs, people that have an MBA already, should be looking for specifically?
I
That
haven't, it's an interesting question. And for those that engage with us here at Blue Water, right, and our members, we know we like to talk analytically. In other words, I love to answer questions like, well, based on the 75% of members of the Blue Water Network that have MBAs, this is what they've experienced, right? I would love to be able to answer this. I have not gone in and tried to tease out that data analytically. So I'll just throw that out as
sure.
a disclaimer. But Scott, I don't see that as a barrier to entry, if that makes sense. In other words, I just don't, we don't see companies, industries saying, hey, you have to have this MBA before we'll consider you. Nor do I see individuals that, just off the top of my head, I know that pursued MBAs pursuing other great opportunities that other individuals with no MBA perhaps
Mm.
wouldn't be able to pursue, right? Does that make sense? In other words, I don't see a unique pursuit with individuals with MBAs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the traditional view of reason to get an MBA is you're going to find yourself eventually in the C-suite of some sort of corporation, and perhaps a lot of people just don't want that type of responsibility by the time they've been through a
It
military
is
career.
true. There's a lot to be said for, tenacity, stepping in, hard work, reps and sets, not taking no for an answer, getting it there. Like people ask me, Mike, do you have an MBA? Now, truth and advertising, I have a master's degree. It's a master's in public administration, so kind of more program policy oversight, that kind of thing. But I tell people, I go, yeah, I have an MBA from the School of Amazon, right? So,
Yeah.
every Thursday when you're in meeting with the CFO and you're defending your budget on, your team's effort to, in our case, procure aircraft, engine swaps, paint jobs, all these kind of things. How much money are you spending and allocating to those things? And you have to defend it. Yeah, the short answer rarely survives first contact, right? It is like, man, they want the detail. They want not only what you did historically, how did that stack up? What's your future progression and projections? What does this look like, right? Yeah, try doing that every Thursday for like 4 years. Yeah, I have an MBA. I understand the questions that are coming and I understand that they're going to be hard answers. Short answers, not filled with any data, won't survive that contact, right? So the point I'm trying to make is tenacity, hard work, reps and sets, engaging, and getting the job done satisfactorily in a business environment. There's value in that, right?
And so that sounds like it's just more acceptable that they realize, hey, you're going to have to get your feet wet, so to speak.
Well,
Versus,
I think it's perhaps, but I like to think the demographic that I described on the Blue Water member, right? Leadership and experience, drive, self-startedness, right? That everything that is rich in our ecosystem here at Blue Water and our members, that wins the day.
yeah.
Right? That wins the day. And it's not to say that members won't step into some environment and have to learn a new skill. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, more often than not, if you are stepping into corporate America, if you are stepping into venture capital, private equity, if you are stepping into, well, here's a great one, financial management, right? Finance world. If you are stepping into the legal world, you're going to have continuing education. You're going to have certifications in many of those cases that you're going to have to pursue for you to remain competitive as you move forward in those industry swim lanes, right? But is it a barrier of entry to get there? No, I don't see that. I don't see that analytically. I don't hear that. In fact, I honestly, I'm careful about speaking in absolutes, always or never. But I can honestly say I don't recall a member coming to me and they said, Mike, they thought I was a great fit, but I didn't have an MBA, so they couldn't take me. Like I don't remember a conversation like that. Or Mike, they thought I was a great fit, but I didn't have an RBLP leadership certification, or I didn't have a this or that, right? I mean, I just don't hear that frequently, right?
Yeah.
Either members are going to align with a role and responsibility, they're going to pursue it, and they're going to network their way in there, and they're going to get an opportunity to step in and deliver results and raise the bar, which our members excel in that, right? Or not, right? So
Since you touched on it, let me add, my 2 cents or my experience in, at least on the financial management side,
yeah,
financial services. For anybody looking to get in the financial
that's
services,
probably one where you do have some certifications, right? You
it's because
probably
they're not called certifications; they're called licenses, and so
okay.
it's
Okay, great.
simply a matter of having the license to be able to sell a specific product, realizing that if you're entering financial services, you might, I mean, unless you're in a management type role for a
Right,
firm or something like that, they might ask you to get the licenses, but you're not necessarily getting compensated. But for most of the people who are going to be a quote unquote financial advisor,
right.
financial planner, investment, advisor, if you're ending up in that role, if you're being compensated, by a client through the sell or giving of advice, you have to have particular licenses. That just it's really,
Yeah.
yes, there's some education and
Right.
knowledge in getting that, but in reality, it's a check the box to make sure you're legally allowed to be compensated from that. So you got everything from the Series 7s to the Series 65s to the insurance license to the health insurance license, property and casualty. And my caution, if you are entering this space, is be very clear at what licenses are useful, because some of them kind of box you into a particular type
Mm,
of role
right.
and have way more compliance requirements and maybe don't compensate any specific way extra. So anyways, so if you're in the if you're considering financial services, I'm always happy to chat with people about, different routes you can take
Sure.
to, be in a consulting type role, whether with a firm or independently. Again, no right or wrong, but there is kind of the old school way and just the way things are going.
No,
And
that's a good call out, right?
yeah,
I mean, and I'm sure there are other industries that require
yeah. I mean,
licensing.
mortgage. I mean, if you want to get into
There
real
you go.
estate,
Maybe real estate would
mortgage
be one,
broker.
right?
Yeah, because there's
Certainly,
lots of ways of
banking,
doing real estate without, or commercial real estate. You're like, hey,
right?
there's a good opportunities, and some
Oh,
people kind of do it on their own or they join a firm and maybe you're in the sales role, or maybe you're not in the sales role but you're being compensated through the sale, still have to have the licenses
right.
to so. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of industries in our highly regulated environment
Really.
to
Yeah.
make sure. So, consider that if you want to, go a little bit more independent or a non-traditional corporate. Various licenses out there, and there's a lot of different kinds, and some of them are stepping stones to others. But again, some of them are kind of old school or not necessary. They're assumed to be necessary, but
Right.
it's like, what if you don't need it? You spend 6 months getting a Series 7. You don't sell anybody an options contract.
Yeah.
You just, it's like, well, that wasn't necessary. But
So
firms
I
will require it for you to join them sometimes.
yeah, let's
So
put a shout out, right? If anybody happens to be listening in, right, and you are already through your career progression or getting ready to step into it, would love to know what your thoughts are on certifications and
yeah, actually,
what
we
your
got one.
preconceived notions are or where you're at, right? So,
We got one from Joe from Colorado. Thank you,
hey,
Joseph.
morning, Joe.
No, I think he gave us some good insight here. So it's a little long. So let me read it off. Um, Actually, it kind of, I think it bled off. Let me see if I can get the whole thing.
Yeah. So
Um,
while you're pulling it up, what's the number one say? As a retired NCO,
yeah,
I feel that certs are the only way to qualify military experience during the civilian transition.
I can see that. Yeah,
As a retiring chief, I believe a PMP, LSBB, RBLP combo effectively covers most of my responsibilities and best communicates them to a hiring manager. If you're not staying in your niche until cryptology, there's a widespread, and then it kind of breaks off there. So,
here I'll read that one separately. But
yeah,
let's talk about number one. No, I think that makes a complete sense. Like if you have a specialty in the military, I always think of Trevor, the EOD tech. Not
yeah,
much EOD he's doing on the outside, but man, was he specialized. I'm sure being a pilot, I don't know, do they have special certifications they have to do for people that want to stay flying other than maintaining their aviation license? But no,
yeah,
Joseph, I think you're spot on. That if you want to stay in a very niche expertise, that's going to be an obviously increase your opportunities. Because I think you do see that more in the NCO field, and the NCO side of things, where you have that the niche expertise, where you're doing the technical side of the work there.
So what
And
I'd also, Joe, if I could, just for consideration, right? When you're stepping in and you narrow your scope of what it is you're going to pursue and what it is you're going to do, and you start looking at this company or industries or their role and responsibility as lined out. What are your deliverables? How are you going to be able to do this? I wouldn't just narrow your engagement with the company. For example, I have a PMP. I'm RBLP certified, so resiliency based leadership kind of leader, and I've got these skill sets through this program. There's no doubt in my mind. I know very little about you, haven't met you, but if I could just understand that as an NCO, there's no doubt you have a wealth of experiences.
yeah,
And the challenge is going to be how you translate your experiences in the company industry's language, and how you're going to join the team, how you're going to solve their problems, deliver results, and raise the bar. And I would argue, as a hiring manager, I'm less interested in the certifications that you have, but I'm more interested in the things that you have done throughout your career for long periods of time. And I'm interested in that you understand what my problems are, and you're now going to communicate to me how your experiences are going to help me solve my issues. That's what I'm interested in.
yeah,
So,
okay.
you
So
know, the
that gets
certifications certainly are part of it, and it's not a bad thing. Don't misunderstand. I'm not down on certifications, but I don't want people pursuing them because they think without them, I'm not going to be competitive. And that is absolutely not true for the demographic that resides here.
so this hits on his second point. I can read the whole thing off of LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah.
He says if you're not staying in your niche, intel, cryptography, etc. There's a widespread belief that these certs are the only ways to beat the resume software HR algorithms when it comes to job applications, and that gets into the whole translate your military skills into civilian
Yeah.
skills. And I think what you just said
Yeah.
was, maybe if you're going through the algorithm route, but what you always hit on is networking. If you can show your expertise from your military experience, they're going to, of course, tell you, hey, we just can't hire somebody unless they have the certification. But
So Joe,
if you can
he's
show that you
hitting
got
on
the
it. Yeah.
expertise.
No, he's hitting on a couple of things, right? And we
Yeah.
talk about that here at Blue Water, right? Applicant tracking systems is what he's referring to there. And hey, I'm going to apply for a job, and the applicant tracking system is going to kind of compare and contrast my resume to a specific position description. And hey, I'm not going to index high enough in a compatibility thing, and it's going to get kicked out. Which is all the reason that we put out. And I said it early on, I'm going to say it again right now. The single most important thing for individuals finding their next success is networking. You want to have a relationship with somebody internal to the company that's going to be your champion, right? I mean, that's absolutely critical, and hands down, across 500 plus members in the Blue Water Network of senior leaders, the way I just described it, that is the single most important thing, right? And so applicant tracking systems are one thing, but regardless of whether or not you have the certifications or not, translating your experience in the language that's going to allow you to target that position description, we help with that. And there are tools out there that do that. SkillSyncer, JobScan, Grammarly are just a few, but we educate our individuals and our members on how to target that effectively. But a resume is never going to get you a job. The single most important thing is being introduced and having a networking relationship with somebody at the company who is influential in being your champion on the inside, if that makes sense. Good question, though. Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks.
Jason, thanks for chiming in. Your thoughts
Hey,
on somebody
Jason.
with an MBA?
What do you say? Agree completely. Lots of OJT opportunity. Yeah, Jason, you're, and I look forward to talking to you here a little bit later this morning. But Jason is pretty experienced in the space out there as well, Scott. And I agree with him. Right, there's a lot of OJT opportunities out there. for members that can show up, demonstrate a knowledge. And this is the way we say it in Blue Water. You're going to have a lot of engagements back and forth between you and a company or you and the industry. And remember, certifications and pursuing all these things, because why? I want, the reflex is I want to engage some company and go, hi, my name is Mike Wallace. I'm RBLP, PMP certified, DIWEA 1, 2, 3 certified. I've got all these certifications. Now look at me, look how great I am. And really the hiring manager is going to go, some of that, maybe I know what it is. Some of it I don't. Really, what am I interested in? I want to hear how you're going to solve my problems and how you're bringing hard and soft skills to the table and raising the bar and delivering results on my team. So we tell our members in these back and forth engagements in the networking world, remember, it's not about you. It's about them. And the part that is about you is what you're going to do for them, right? And that's how we tell members to think about this. So I hate the term elevator pitch. Have you heard that, Scott? I absolutely hate it. In other words, that is a 2-minute pitch about you. You're just pontificating how great you are. And I tell our members, I go, don't do that. I would rather you put time in educating yourself about the company, about the industry, having an innate understanding on what their challenges are, and then being able to articulate how you're going to help them solve their problems.
Yeah.
Which is completely different than just pontificating for 2.5 minutes all about me. My name is Mike Wallace. I've got an RBLP, PMP. I've got all these certifications. Somebody's going to go, yeah, I don't care. What are you going to do for me?
Yeah. No, when I first got into the financial industry, I bought courses on how to write an elevator pitch, all the tips and tricks, and then you just find yourself at a networking event. And so what do you do? Well, I, have these licenses, and I help military retirees. And now when somebody asks me, I find myself bumbling around. I'm like, you know what? I don't have anything memorized anymore about what I do. It's just like, the better thing is just to see
conversational in nature.
Get to know people, see if there's a reason to keep chatting about stuff. That's about as aggressive as I am at this point. But well, cool, Mike. One other shout out. I want to, Will Schneider hit us up.
Hey, Will.
So Will is a co-host of the Men Talking Mindfulness podcast with John McCaskill. John, retired Navy SEAL, Naval Academy grad, and their podcast has just blown up over the years. And kind of hit on our topic last week. If you're looking for some, mindfulness motivation type stuff, they've done a ton of great interviews, and they also do coaching and speaking engagements for corporations and stuff, and so I know they've got a whole program now. So
mental health, right? Headspace, right? That's a real thing, right?
Maybe we talk about doing see if we can do like a webinar with them, for the Blue Water members.
Yeah, that would be awesome, right?
Because I don't know, maybe even with anyways, John's a Naval Academy grad. Maybe we'll loop them in somehow. But cool. Well, no, thanks, Mike. I guess one last question I think is the obvious one, just to hit on real quick as we close up. Are there any expectations of extra compensation for having any or all of these certifications, MBAs, any these days?
Wow. That's a great question. And I'm trying to think of an example where a member has brought to our attention, say, hey, I had this, so therefore I made X% more in my offer, right? I completely leave the door open that there may be something like that. Nothing comes to mind, right? And maybe anybody listening, chime in if you guys are aware of something. But I'm not. I mean, typically our members, when you get to that point where you're negotiating your offer, it's really your experience base, your leadership experiences, right? Sometimes your programmatic exposure to, aligning very, very closely to what a company or industry is looking for. it's going to be typically that value and the level that a company is going to be trying to bring you into that is going to allow you to negotiate, I think, your compensation effectively in one direction or another, right? So, but I'm sure, again, I'll leave the door open. There may be a specific certification out there that if you had it, um, you know, one that comes to mind maybe is a security clearance, right? I mean, if you have a
Yeah.
security clearance, like a lot of us do, there are companies that are willing to pay for a security clearance, right? And but most of our members have a security clearance, so that's kind of a static baseline, right, as we move forward. So it's a good question. I'm not sure I have a good.
No, I mean, if it doesn't jump out like, oh yeah, definitely, you get paid more if you have this one. So, now thanks, lad.
Good morning, lad. Thanks for the input there. We appreciate you listening in.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, if you can, if you've had command or
Running, yeah, things at 3 levels of command as his MBA. Yeah, it's very similar to like my time at Amazon, right? Every Thursday for an hour and a half meeting with the CFO for years. Yes, I have an MBA. I completely, understand the P&L world and the questions he's going to ask you, right? You get forced into it and you just figure it out. And that's where tenacity comes out. And, that's the education that you get, the OJT, right? As we talked about earlier. So,
yes, sir.
Scott, it's a good discussion, man. I'm glad we got a chance to cover off on it.
Yeah, no, definitely needed to fill that gap. For those that did wanted to dig in deeper to our previous discussions on, hold on, let me pull this up.
Yeah.
On
Categorize
LinkedIn or any of the other topics that we hit on. You can go to militaryretirementblueprint.com. Links below in the description. And we're going to be doing more with this site, but for now we've got all of our previous episodes up there and a bunch of other topics to dig into. So this will be a place to subscribe and get updates on.
We've got a lot of topics,
things.
right? A lot of repository of some good discussions, Scott, right? I mean, we do it pretty much every week, right? So
yeah, unless you got
hey, for next week, just heads up, right? Maybe we can do one on the road if you want to try it, but I'll be out at Tailhook, right, in Reno, Nevada. There.
Oh no, no, that's distracts from your network. Or even though this is a way of networking, and unless you have anybody you want to like bring on live while you're sitting there.
Yeah, maybe we could just find somebody. Let's stay in touch. Maybe we could do that. It'd be kind of a fun one, right? Kind of do a podcast from Reno there. It'd be fun.
Yeah, we could even just do a quick check in. Let us know from the floor. You can just use your phone.
Yeah, I love it.
Show us around.
Okay.
But all right. Well, cool. Well, you got Tailhook coming up. So if anybody's going to be out there, make sure you stop by and find Mike, say hi. Whoops, just remove Mike instead of the screen. And then we're going to be in Annapolis the week of the
9th, 10th, and 11th.
9th, 10th, and 11th. So Mike's got a cohort going on the 10th. I'm going to be available for anybody who's in the Annapolis area that wants to chat on the 10th. I'll be hanging out and grab a coffee or something. I'm happy to talk about anything. Obviously, if you want to have questions around insurance and survivor benefit plan decisions specifically, or if you know anybody in the Annapolis area who's nearing retirement or recently retired. And didn't have the opportunity to join Mike's cohort there this time around.
Yeah.
I'm happy to sit down and chat about things, whatever it is you want to do when you grow up, and plans that come next, or what's working on in the online world. Like, happy to chat about all those things, but.
It's going to be a good, we're busy, I should say, Scott, right? For the next probably month and a half or so, right? But it's going to be good. I look forward to getting back up there. That's our second trip, headed back up to the Naval Academy there, teaching in the Flugel Center. So it's going to be exciting. We look forward to it.
All right. Well, thanks again, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
And we will maybe see you in Tailhook if I don't talk to you.
Yeah. We'll stay in touch. We'll stay in touch. All right.
Thanks.